At around the NFL midseason mark, I made a video on how likely every NFL head coach was to get fired. Now that we're around the midseason mark for the NBA, obviously most teams are above the 41 game mark. I think it's a good idea to move that idea to the NBA and talk about every NBA coach and how likely they are to get fired this season or potentially after this season. There are 31 names here or pictures here because the Spurs have two in Greg Popovich and Mitch Johnson. Obviously, Popovich had the stroke, so he hasn't been coaching for like the last 3 months, I believe. Let's get started with the NBA hot seat. I'm gonna, I guess, maybe assume that most of you guys, not most of you guys, maybe some of you guys will know, but some of you guys might not know every NFL or NBA head coach by their picture. I'll put the team in the top right so you know what team I'm talking about with the NBA head coach. Starting off with an interesting one, we're going to have Nick Nurse of the 76ers. The Sixers have been pretty disappointing this season. Now, you can attribute a lot of that to injury. Paul George has not been healthy. Joel Embiid, we know, has not been healthy. Tyrese Maxey has also been up and down in terms of his health. So you can't put all of it on Nick Nurse, but I think it's pretty fair to say his seat is getting warm now. This is Nick Nurse's second season with the Philadelphia 76ers. Last year, they were a playing team. Again, they dealt with a lot of injuries, but the Sixers haven't been that great under Nick Nurse. We've seen them at the 2 seed, at the 3 seed under Doc Rivers, and I'm not saying that that's not their ceiling for this current team. I don't think Nick Nurse is really getting that out of them right now. I don't imagine he'll get fired after this season. I think there might be a slight possibility, but right now it's hard to argue against Nick Nurse's seat not being at least warm. I could say that exact same thing with Doc Rivers. I'd say his seat, is it a little bit warmer or colder? I'd say it's a little bit colder than Nick Nurse's. But the Bucks had a very tough start to the season, and they had a very hard end to last season as well, losing in the first round to the Pacers. I think if we see the Bucks potentially flame out again in this postseason, Doc Rivers is going to be at the chopping block. He has not had any playoff success since his time in 2008 with the Celtics. He's definitely riding the rest of his coaching career after that one. I don't imagine he gets another job if he ends up moving on from the Milwaukee Bucks. But the possibility of this team kind of going downhill at the end of the season makes me feel like Doc Rivers' seat is definitely getting warm. Billy Donovan's seat is interesting because he's doing pretty solid with the team he has right now. It's a pretty average Chicago Bulls team. Zach LaVine and Vucevic are having good seasons, and they're hovering around that 10 seed, that play-in mark. Unfortunately, the Bulls do not want to be hovering around the 10 seed. They want to tank. They want to be able to have one of the top picks in the 2025 draft where it's strong with Cooper Flagg, with Dylan Harper, with Ace Bailey, Kasparas Yakujonis, Yegor Demon, VJ Edgecombe. There are a lot of solid prospects in this draft that I think the Bulls can definitely capitalize on. For that reason, it's probably tough to say where he'd be on this list. I imagine they want to move on from him sooner or later, but considering the team he has right now, I guess I'll throw him in the average tier. You know what, actually, I'm going to put him in the hot tier. I mean, he's been with Chicago for a minute. They're not in the exact place they want to be. Maybe it's a bit of an exaggeration, but I think the Bulls kind of want to move on from Billy Donovan. Next up, we have maybe the easiest name on this list, and Kenny Atkinson. 100% safe for Atkinson. He's having an amazing season with the Cleveland Cavaliers, doing stuff we had no idea they could do. Cavs are the 1 seed right now and are one of the contenders in the Eastern Conference. Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics this year are kind of having a bit of a down year since last year. Maybe it's championship holdover or hangover, excuse me. Maybe it's that this team just isn't playing that well. Who knows? Is he 100% safe? Probably. I mean, he just won a championship last year, but he's sort of just doing well this season. Not anything too spectacular, but I am going to end up throwing him in the 100% safe tier. Coming off of a championship, still a top 2 seed in the East. There's not a lot we can go against Joe Mazzulla in that tier. Next up, we have Tyronn Lue. He's doing very well for the Clippers this year. This is a team that was not expected to be this high in the Western Conference. Very stacked Western Conference. They could have potentially fell out of the play-in completely. Still could happen, but for right now, he's getting a lot out of Norman Powell, a lot out of James Harden, a lot out of Ivica Zubac, and the Clippers right now are looking like a solid playoff team, thanks to Tyronn Lue. Taylor Jenkins is also another coach that I think should be in the running for Coach of the Year this season. The Grizzlies right now are the 3 seed, and even with Ja Morant on a bit of a minutes restriction, not playing as much minutes as we know he can at his peak, and also just not playing as good as we know he can play, the Grizzlies are still one of the best teams in the Western Conference. With Taylor Jenkins and the rest of that coaching staff has been able to get out of their young second-round picks in the last couple of years, and Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams. This year, Rookie of the Year potentially in Jalen Wells. I think that by itself should put him into the 100% safe tier. He's doing a great job with the Grizzlies, and I think he should be in top 3 for Coach of the Year. Next, we have Quinn Snyder of the Atlanta Hawks. I think I'm pretty confident throwing him into the average tier. The Hawks are doing fine this year. They're not expected to make any too big of moves at the deadline. They're just going to ride with what they got, maybe make a play-in push, maybe even get into the playoffs, and just see what Trae Young, Jalen Johnson, DeAndre Hunter can do. And that's nothing against Coach Snyder. We saw he was really good defensively with the Utah Jazz back when they had Mitchell and Gobert, and now he's trying to instill a similar identity into this Hawks team, especially just after getting Zachary Sachet. Let's see if they make a move in the offseason, potentially adding another name next to Trae Young. Let's see if they potentially move a Clint Capella this deadline or during the offseason. Either way, I don't think Snyder gets traded. I also think he's doing an okay job this year with the Atlanta Hawks. Eric Spoelstra is interesting because obviously we know him to be one of the best head coaches in NBA history. The Heat have kind of been on the similar trajectory as they were last year, just middle of the pack. Nothing too good, nothing too bad. I'd say he's also doing an average job. I mean, he's also handling a lot with Jimmy Butler. So maybe once he leaves, we'll see this Heat team kind of even out. But for right now, he's managing. Next up is Charles Lee of the Charlotte Hornets. A lot of Hornets fans early in the season have been calling him out for potentially misusing guys like Brandon Miller, like LaMelo Ball, and not really getting the most out of his team. As of recently, haven't really heard that too much. I don't believe that Charles Lee should be on the hot seat right now. I don't even think his seat is really getting warm. I'd also throw him onto the average tier. Brandon Miller's out for the year. We do not expect the Hornets to make the play-in push that we did potentially in the beginning of the season. Now they're just kind of riding it out. See what they can do with that deadline. Maybe clear up some more cap space and make some moves in the offseason. I think I have a hot take for Will Hardy in the Utah Jazz. I'm actually going to put him onto the hot seat. 2 years ago, immediately after trading Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, this Jazz team was on a kind of upward trajectory. They had a really good start to the 2022-2023 season. Larry Markkinen was an all-star starter. It was looking like they were really starting to build to something. They kind of find out to the end of the season, but they were still a respectable team. Last year, they were bad. They were really bad. And this year, they're even worse. I don't see him getting fired during this season, potentially during the offseason if stuff really flame over, or mid-season next season. But I think right now, I'm kind of convinced that Will Hardy should be around the hot seat. He hasn't really progressed with this young Jazz team. They haven't made the moves that we know they could have done within 3 years. And for right now, I think I'm pretty confident to put Will Hardy into the hot seat. Tibbs has definitely done well for the New York Knicks so far this season. They are at the 3 seed, a game behind the Celtics. I don't really think they'll get up to the 2 seed, but if they do, this is going to be a successful season for the Knicks. Their trades in getting Mikal Bridges is looking pretty good right now. But the real test for the Knicks is going to be what happens during the postseason. Can they make that championship push? We haven't seen them do it last year or the year before that. Can Mikal Bridges bring this team to the next level with Tibbs at the helm? Who knows? We'll see. Next up, we're going to have JJ Redick of the LA Lakers. And maybe this is a little bit of a hot take, but I think he's been doing pretty well this season. Some people could definitely argue for him to be in the average tier, but this Lakers team last year ended as a 7 seed. Right now, they're at the 5 seed in the actual playoffs, not in the play-in tournament. They're a lot better right now than what they were at this point last season. And I think you could definitely attribute a lot of that to JJ Redick. LeBron James is getting older. He's focusing more of the game plan around Anthony Davis, and so far this season, it's working. Probably going to make some moves at the trade deadline to get this team better, but JJ Redick has been doing pretty well this season. Jamal Mosley has definitely had his ups and downs so far this season. Paolo Banchero came out of the gate on fire. Then he got hurt, missed a very long extended period of time. And to be honest, the Magic team was faring. Even without Franz Wagner as well, they were winning games. They were staying outside of the play-in tournament. But as of recently, this team hasn't been too great. Their offense is absolutely horrendous, so they're going to have to make some moves pertaining to that. And honestly, I'm probably going to put Jamal Mosley on the average right now. If this was maybe 20 games ago, he would probably be in one of these 2 tiers, but this team has kind of flamed out. Maybe that's because that their 2 best players are still trying to get integrated back into the flow of this team, but I don't know. He's definitely doing pretty average right now. I'm going to say the same thing about Jason Kidd, but I mean, his guys have been hurt with Kyrie and Luka Doncic for a solid part of this season, so I can't put too much of that on him. There was that one rumor that they're going to try to move Daniel Gafford. Now that Derek Lively is going to be out potentially until the playoffs, that's not happening. So for right now, Jason Kidd will be in the average tier. Really nothing too much I could say about this injury-ridden Mavericks team. Jordi Fernandez was giving possibly the worst team in the NBA. Nothing I can say about that one either. Except we have Michael Malone of the Denver Nuggets. I think he was doing pretty good this season. Solid, he's doing well. I think what this Nuggets team was expected to do this season, so far they are doing that. Losing KCP, what we know is going to be a big hit for them, but Christian Brown has stepped up. Russell Westbrook is looking to be a great addition. I think kind of just running that offense, what he's been able to do with those two guys hitting new roles has been impressive for Michael Malone. I'd say he's doing well this season, should not be considered to get fired. Same thing with Rick Carlisle and the Pacers, honestly. This was a team that started off the season pretty rocky. Halliburton was not looking that good. A lot of the weight the team was put on Siakam's shoulders, but as of recently, Halliburton has been a lot better. This Pacers team is now at the 5 seed, and they're looking to stay in that realm to potentially make a run at the playoffs, or potentially add a guy like Cam Johnson at the deadline to make a championship push. Willie Green is definitely a coach that I would say is on the hot seat right now. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on Will Hardy, but yeah, this Pelicans team is not having a good season. Like I said with Nick Nurse, a lot of that is due to injury. He hasn't really been able to connect the pieces of Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson to make a championship roster. So unfortunately, I am a part-time Pelicans fan. I do like Willie Green, but I'm going to have to put him on the hot seat for right now. I don't know if his job is safe for next season. What more can you ask out of JB Bickerstaff and the Detroit Pistons this season? I'd say he's 100% safe. This was one of the worst teams of all time last season. JB Bickerstaff has made them into a playing team, potentially a playoff team, and getting that experience for Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren. I really think that Bickerstaff is going to be able to continue to build with this Pistons team, add maybe a piece or two during the offseason, and make this team potentially an NBA Finals contender in year 4 or in year 3 or 4 of what he's trying to build here. I'd say Darko Rajakovic's seat right now is probably getting a little bit warm. I'd say he's definitely, I don't know, is he the coolest out of these two guys right now? I'm not so sure. But this Raptors team had some sort of expectations going into this season. Siakam and Anunoby. But now this year, getting RJ Barrett, getting Emmanuel Quickley, having a set roster, they haven't been that good. Emmanuel Quickley has been injured, but there's really no excuse why this Raptors team should be at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. They've been doing solid recently, but for right now, I'd say Rajakovic's seat is definitely getting a little bit warm. I'm not sure whether or not he could be that guy for the Toronto Raptors as their rebuild moves forward. Ime Udoka is another coach I'm going to put straight into the 100% safe. I really like what I'm seeing out of the Rockets so far this season. As the 2 seed, having a score by committee type team with Amen Thompson breaking out this season, being one of the best defenders, also showing his scoring impact as well. Jalen Green has been up and down this season, but overall, still able to score that rock. Alperen Sengun has been an all-star talent this season, even with the former, third overall pick in Jabari Smith being out. This team has been able to ride the wave. They're comfortably at the 2 seed right now in the Western Conference. Greg Popovich has his own tier name for a reason. He hasn't coached in 3 months. He's also only going to leave the Spurs if he wants to. The Spurs aren't going to fire Pop, let's be for real. So he's going to be put in the Coach Pop tier. One of the greatest coaches of all time. He's going to leave on his own terms. Mitch Johnson has done a pretty solid job replacing him, making the Spurs team at least respectable. I don't know if I'm going to be putting him into the doing well tier because he's not at the level at Rick Carlisle, Michael Malone. Maybe JJ Redick's a little bit too nice. Tom Thibodeau or Tyronn Lue. So I guess I'll put him to the average tier. He's been cool. He's been a very good interim head coach. Let's see if he gets any jobs this offseason. Next up, we got Coach Bud, Coach Budenholzer of the Phoenix Suns. I'll put him in average. Another team that did not start off great to the season, but as of recently, they've been solid. KD has been really good this whole season. Devin Booker has been more efficient as the season has gone on. He came in to implement a new offensive strategy of more 3-pointers. It's been up and down for the Suns this season for sure, but I think I'll put him at average. You could argue that his seat is getting a little bit warm, but for right now, definitely average. Mark Daigneault, another coach I'm very confident we could throw into the 100% safe. No explanation for that one. Chris Finch of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, it's another team that has been up and down. He's not going to get fired. His seat is not warm. His team just made the conference finals a year ago. They're still trying to put it together with Julius Randle. I'd say he's on the average right now, but I guess you never know. Chauncey Billups is definitely on fire. He won't be fired most likely this season because there's no point. He's at the end of his contract. They're going to move off him in the offseason anyway. But if there's any coach that was going to get fired this season, aside from Mike Brown, it's Chauncey Billups. Steve Kerr is interesting. Obviously, the Warriors have not been amazing this season. Can I put him into the sort of Coach Pop tier or leave on their own terms? Maybe. But I can kind of see Kerr and the Warriors kind of just split mutually, something like that. I mean, they got rid of Klay Thompson. They're willing to get rid of their cornerstone pieces. I don't know. We'll see. I'm actually gonna put them here for right now. I'll change the tier name to leave on their own terms. But I guess I don't know. Should I put him here? Should I not? Finally, we're gonna have Brian Keefe of the Washington Wizards. This is his first official year as that head coach after Wes Unseld Jr. was fired. So, with how bad this team is, the worst team in the NBA right now, I mean, it's his first year. What do you want him to do? It's literally his first year. They have not expected absolutely anything from him. We'll see what happens in the future, but for right now, he's been doing pretty average. But here are the tiers. If you want me to zoom in, so you could tell these coaches by face, as if you can't, because I'm a little far away. Here they are. Here's the coaches 100% safe. We have 6 of them. The coaches that are doing well this season, the coaches that are doing about average this season. Probably can move some of these guys up, maybe a Chris Finch, maybe a Jason Kidd, maybe a Mitch Johnson either. And then the getting warm and on fire. These are 8 head coaches that I think within the next maybe 2 years could be out of their jobs. That's going to be it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.